Inevitably, of course, a lot of transfer gossip around this morning. Manchester United being linked with the likes of Benjamin Sesko and Ollie Watkins. Yesterday, speaking to Adi Oladipo and Simon Jordan, former Premier League boss Martin O'Neill said no matter what their situation, players don't say no to Manchester United.
It depends whether players... This is my view. It depends whether players know the history of football clubs. You know, you're talking about young people coming in now who might not even know the history of the football club that they're involved with, you know. And I'm not saying they have to read every single book about it, but you have to have some sort of a feel. Manchester United still command that feel. I will dispute that with anybody. They still command that feel. It's Manchester United. They're massive. And if I was a player now, somebody give me this opportunity and said, oh, listen, Manchester United will be 3 years before they're in the Champions League again. It wouldn't matter one hoot.
I'm not sure about that, to be honest, but players not saying no to Manchester United. Well, Victor Gyökeres said no to Manchester United for a start. So that's one off the top of my head. It must matter to players, you know, if they're not going to win anything for 3 or 4 years, if that is the case at Manchester United.
I mean, if you was a player in the last sort of 3-4 years looking at Manchester United, you wouldn't, assume that you're going to win trophies on a regular basis of what's happened. But, with Amorim going in there, this new look, the way they've kind of put to one side certain players in the dressing room that they're trying to correct, that kind of work ethic and everything else that was going on there. I think it's a positive place. I think if I was an agent, I would be looking at it a little bit more positive than I looked at it last year. Let's put it that way. But would Watkins want to go there? I think Ollie Watkins wants to go from Villa. I think, that European situation last year when he was left out, particularly from Marcus Rashford when he was on loan into Villa, I think that would have hurt him. And I think that would have put a wedge between him and the manager that might actually not be removable. Sometimes you can make up again and kind of get a bond back to a player, and I think I'm not so sure that's happened there. And I think Ollie will go this window, but whether he goes to United might depend on where Sesko goes.
Yeah,
but Martin has a point, I suppose, about Man United. They are still kind of in that echelon of, thoughts.
But I would argue that they can't anymore attract the absolute creme de la creme. If you're like, oh, time will tell.
Yeah.
Interesting, Luke Shaw saying this week that it had been toxic at Manchester United, but now the atmosphere was better than it had been for a long time.
He wants to play.
Well, yeah.
So he's going to say that.
That would be a result for Manchester United and their fans as well.
If he can stay fit, wow, he's had a terrible, terrible run of fitness. Yeah,
he certainly has. And Manchester United's pre-season results, of course, will leave their fans buoyant.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.